Yo, what up? It's me, Joshua, whoever. How you guys doing? Doing okay? Hey, it looks a little bit different on this format. Why is that? Oh, we're just trying a different thing out, you know? We're just seeing how it does. I got a webcam. I don't know how I feel about it right now, just because I don't know. The new thing is now I don't see me here. I see me down here. So I can't use it too much because you'll think I'm just looking down here going like, yeah, and sometimes life is sexual and shit. I got to remember not to do that. So, what's going on, guys? How we doing? Trying something new out. Let's see how we feel about it. Don't know yet. We'll see. What have we been up to? What have we been up to? Man, seems to be the question I get asked every time by myself. Oh, not a whole lot. One of my friends got a hold of me, and he asked me this question, and I bet you're gonna think this is funny because you're gonna be like, "Oh my god, seriously?" He said, "You ever heard of a book called House of Leaves?" Go ahead and make fun of me because I'm about to say, "No, I've never heard of that book. What is that?" And he says, "I'm not really sure. I just keep getting it keeps getting recommended to me." So I was like, "Okay, say no more." I just went and got the book, and I was like, I don't really know what to expect here, so let's just start reading. And I'm about 70 pages in, and that's where I can pause. Because I'm realizing, like, oh, this is like just based on the little description of the book and based on the 70 pages that I've read, I'm like, okay, this is clearly the Labyrinth of Minos's Labyrinth, the Minotaur. Kind of a play on that or something. I'm not really sure. It's a little edgy. He said the word spliff, so I knew that it was from the 2000s, you know? But yeah, I don't know. Just in the midst of reading that and seeing how that goes and all that stuff. And it's so funny. It how it reads is like this character, I think his name's Johnny, discovers this like amalgamation of like papers and stuff like that in like some kind of trunk or something. And he takes it home and he's reading it. It's the account of this man who died in this apartment, who was a blind old man. And in the manuscript, in the writings, he's discovering it's about this documentary made by someone with the last name Davidson, about this crazy, strange house. Okay, I'm sure that you already know about this because apparently everyone knows about it except for me. I don't know why. So that's that, and it's kind of cool. It's very interesting. And the way it's played out, though, is kind of how I imagined The Forgotten to read whenever I fucking finish it. Where it's like kind of confusing. There's a lot of like subtext. There's a lot of use of the the bottom of the page when you have the number there and you go down, you read the references and appendix and all that. I kind of wanted to do it like that. And the way the story is written, I'm like, oh my God, it's already been done. It's like one of those moments for me. It's like, ah, shit, it's already been done. So, yeah, there's that. So that's kind of just all I've been doing there. It's been kind of reading that and feeling that in its own way. Besides that, I've come to some realizations, and as I've talked about it a lot, the next episode of the Harrius Codex, I wanted to kind of flesh out an introduction to that. We just kind of jump right into a memory, and I thought, well, why don't we kind of expound upon some of the how we got there, maybe a little bit more from the last memory. That's turned into a whole nother fucking story. That's seriously. We've got like at least 15 pages here. So I was like, well, that can't just be that. Now it's not even halfway done, and it's another one of those layers that seems to fucking happen with me every goddamn time I do this shit to myself. Where it's like, well, let me explain to you a little bit more, and all of a sudden it's like, how about another book? I'm in the process of figuring out how to do that, but at the same time tapping into the story to see what it has to tell me. And it's very good. It's very interesting, and I quite enjoy working on it. So that's kind of where we're at. But as I was working on this, it was kind of making things kind of refresh in my mind. And I don't know how it happened, but I solved the problem that happened to me a few years ago. I don't remember how long ago. There's a series on the channel called the Writing Series, I think, where I was chronicling my daily journey of writing the second book of my series. And I had to pause at the end because I had these questions of who Bentan was. It was just kind of like thrown in a whirlwind. I was like, I don't understand what to do here. You know, I have a general idea, but who's Bentan? Fucking years later, the Forgotten series and the Harrius Codex later, I think I finally figured out who he is. I know who he is now, and I know how this all plays out because of my work in the Forgotten series and the work subsequently in the Harrius Codex. And so I was able to finally say that, oh my God, now I have the answer. Now I can go back to that to finish this. So how does this work? Let's, because you have no context to it yet, imagine this. Imagine J.R.R. Tolkien was writing The Fellowship of the Rings, and he got through it, and he's like, yeah, I just fucking got through that. And then he started writing The Two Towers. And on his first draft of writing The Two Towers, imagine he's going like, I just don't understand who this is and what's going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and finally write the Silmarillion real quick. Let me just get that out of the way. Instead of it being ethereal in my head or like notes everywhere, you know, fragments here and there, why don't I finally tell the story of the Silmarillion to myself? So imagine him going back to the Silmarillion and he's only like, you know, 50 pages in. He's like, I think I know how to solve that book 2 problem that takes place a long time later. That's kind of where I'm at right now, but in my version. The Forgotten Chronicle had to be figured out before I could figure out the second book of the called Revelation. Isn't that funny how that works? It's called Revelation, so I knew I was going to have one. So there we are, figuring it out. And that's kind of where I've been right now. I've just been moving around, and I know it's not necessarily a good thing to sit and have a non-coherent approach to this, but shit, man, it's the only way my mind works. You know, I can try to keep it stable with other people, but when I'm alone, man, it's hard for me to stay like on one thing, because you never know. It's like when you play a video game and you go, let's say it's like an open world game, and there's like a cave to explore or a ruin. I'm very much, a lot of the times I'll go in there and be like, oh my God, it's so massive in scope. Sometimes I go over this way and then I'm like, well, let's get out and go that way. Let's go this and that. And, you know, I find myself probing in a bunch of different areas instead of being concise and going through the layout in a very technical kind of way. I don't know. It doesn't really occur to me to do that. Just not my personality at times. Mostly because in this writing process, it's like, how do you word this in a coherent way? It's like you can't necessarily hyperfixate too much on one thing because you can lose sight of all of it. I do this a lot with my drawings, where if I start hyperfixating on one area, I think I could lose touch with what's going on around it. Because sometimes you're sitting here in one little portion of your, you know, paper, your art that you're doing, and you get like, oh, you get an idea for something way over here, and you're like, I got to do it, because if I forget, then whatever. And then you come back here, and then, well, this is here, and that's that. And what I try to do is I try to capture that as best I can, to be the expression of the art in and of itself. You know, life can be very tumultuous at times. As hard as you try, you're never going to keep it fully uniformed. That's a human concept. Totally understand why you'd want to do that, but you got to realize that that's not really realistic. You know, you can't always be concise. Things don't just have a beginning and have a clean ending. That's cut and dry. You can wrap it up and sell it right away. Sometimes things are really confusing, or sometimes the ending kind of pitters out. It has this huge build up, and all of a sudden it's like, nothing happens. You know, they all die. It's like you can't just, you got to accept that in life, honestly. And to God, that's just kind of what I've learned. Learn to accept. And so I kind of approach the art in that way too. It just seems a little bit more enjoyable for me to be in the year 2025. But then let me go back to 1910 real quick to tell you how this happened. 2025. Well, hold on, let me go up to 2015 real quick. But then I need to go back to the 13 AD, and then we'll maybe go back even further real quick and I just jump around like that. And in my mind, these are all working as separate individual ideas that create one whole idea. I think that's life. As human beings, we have a really, really keen tendency to try and keep things uniform, to keep things where they can easily manifest in our minds. We like to lock in ideas and concepts. We like to believe that we just can easily tell the story. All you got to do is start at the beginning and work your way at the end. And I love the puzzle of life, because for me, as someone who grew up the way I did, and I'm trying to learn about literature, I'm trying to learn about mythology and history, it's not uniformed. I'm not going like, okay, if I'm gonna learn about history, let's start at the beginning of written history and then go to the future. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can't. It just doesn't work that way. Sometimes you want to get into World War II real quick. Well, hold on. I like Alexander the Great. Let's go into that real quick. But what about the Civil War? I don't know. Or what about this? Like, I don't know. I can't help that that's who I am. So I approach the writing the same way. Mythology. One minute I'm reading the Mabinogi, and the next minute I'm reading fucking some Celtic myth about the Dagda, and then the next minute I'm reading a modern mythology. You know, it's in anything in between. Pattering, or whatever you want to say, of this Greek myth as well. It's a wonderful idea for me, because I guess what it does is it allows me to connect dots that most people wouldn't. Most people wouldn't see as similar. They would see these as individual different events. Well, this is Persian. This is Persian in, like, 200 BC. That has nothing to do with 1900s political atmosphere of Europe. Nothing to do with it. And I guess because I'm so everywhere, it allows me to see things in a very interesting way. How can I connect the egregore of religion to the concept of morality? How can I connect that morality concept to the events that led up to and created 9/11? And how can I take those events and see it very similar to Germany's taking over Europe in the 1930s, the late 1930s, close to 40? How can I see that all as one coherent human consciousness? Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing that I really, really try to explore, is what exactly is human consciousness? What does that fucking mean? Do you know what I'm saying? And how can I use that understanding in my life? How can I grasp what humans have been doing for thousands of years if I can't fucking relate to it? You know, it's really hard to relate to things that are not your own, whether it's you reading about another culture or religion or simply just another time. It's hard for you to relate because you don't know what it's like to live that time. And like something very modern would be a kid right now under the age of, let's say, 12, trying to understand what it was to live in the 90s. They can watch any documentary they fucking want. They can talk to anyone that lived through it they want from every single age group. But they're not going to understand what it was like to live that life. You know what I'm saying? And because it's kind of futile, you already know you're not going to have the grasping effect of the entirety of what you're trying to undertake. Whether that's grasping Russian literature all the way to what it is to be someone who's a deist, someone who has their own theological understanding of God. I don't know, whoever it is. You're not going to get it because there's a block in the way. And it's a strange block because what that block is language. The one thing that we found to help explain shit to each other of how I think, feel, and see. The only way I can tell you is by fucking using these words. But sometimes that's so limiting because even though I'm processing this and I'm pushing it out, you are not interpreting it the way that you should be, generally. Sometimes you only listen to every other word I say. Sometimes you're hearing me right now, but you're focused on this sentence I said about 15 sentences ago, and you won't stop it. And you just negated everything I said after that, to which you asked me a question which was already answered. People do that a lot. They'll say something. I'm like, did you not watch the video? I literally just said that. Do you know what I mean? Like, people do not interpret this correctly. It's so interesting. That's what's holding us back is our language. And you can see the quiet evolution of it changing. Words are becoming more sparse with texting and emoji, as they call it, in these aspects. People speak differently than they ever have. English is becoming more and more dominant as a fucking language. It's very strange. And here we are, to the point where language seems to be very much an outdated idea. But at the same time, it's profound. Because we use such strange ways to convey our fucking thoughts. Okay, here's a book. This is pretty strange. It's all words. Not only do I know how to interpret these words because they're in my language, but I'm able to understand what's being said here because I can deduce things with my mind, my mental state, my understanding, my literacy, if you will, on a very basic level. But I'm using one person's interpretation through this idea to gain insight on what it is. This is mythology of Wales. And it's called the Mabinogi. And it's these branches, these stories, these mythological stories about Wales, you know, these people in Wales and stuff, to put it simply. But I'm only being interpreted it by this person right here. One person. And they might not do a very good job, or they might do a fantastic job, but I don't understand it because I don't get it. And we're using this one idea with words. And I remember hearing somebody say once, it's very interesting that human beings use words and writing. Because as we think, like, oh, writing, that's a sign of intelligence, a literacy person, a country that can read and write, that's a sign of intelligence, right? Not really, because it's kind of not natural. As a civilization, you know, whether it's European or American or Asian, or I don't know about African as much, I'm not really sure. We determine intelligence through schooling, which they teach literacy and mathematics. And those are fucking strange things, arguably. Because as this person pointed out, people don't think in words. They think in images and sounds. To people that say, I do think in words, like, no, you don't. Because if I try to talk to you, you're not looking at these words creating in your head, like seeing the spelling, like on a fucking typewriter or on a screen. You see the words going out when I'm talking and you're imagining what I'm saying with the words as they're. You're not doing that. You're thinking, you're feeling, you're expressing in that way. If I try to explain to you these black headphones that I have, you instantly see it. You don't write the word black headphones and he sees, and you don't do that. That's not how the mind works. So, and if anything, writing is kind of a fucking strange idea. Yet somehow we can convey through it, but not fully, because then what is participation? How I express it. When people get together and read Shakespeare, everyone's got some opinion about King Lear or some opinion about what that fucker that went crazy and saw his dead dad. I forgot his name. Whatever. We all interpret it differently. We ask different questions because it's so vague. It's written in a different time that we can't quite understand. We don't even know if William Shakespeare was real, and if he really did it, let alone how to interpret it correctly. But my point is, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? That idea that what this really is all about, and using words to try to understand it. It's fucking very strange. And yet here I sit trying to talk about doing this with the fucking mythology that I'm writing. And I'm putting it on this very channel where 5 fucking people apparently only watch it and say nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? Nothing. That was cool. It's like, okay. My point is, it's hard for people to try and grasp something that's not you. But as hard as you try, the only thing you can do is relate it to yourself and your own ideas of whatever it is. You know, if I sit here and talk about what I think God is, it will open the door for conversation. If that does happen, if you look at the comments and you just read how many people have a different understanding of what they think God is. Well, I think it's this. This is that. No, it's not God. It's dimensions. It's not dimensions. It's this. Realms, blah, blah, blah. Like, everyone's got some fucking opinion, especially on what God is or isn't. Or if it isn't a God, it's not a God. It's Awen, you know, or whatever. It's an idea. I'm not here to talk about that, but my point is people will interpret it their way. And man, when they tell you, they're telling you. And you're trying to sit here and sift through that. And let's go back to the topic of what I was really meant to do here. When I'm jumping around of 16th century England in the church all the way to like House of Leaves, the book I'm reading, everyone's always telling you something. What they're seeing through their world and what you need to see through it. Everyone has their own way of this. And as we do that, you start to unravel how connected it really is. When you go topsy-turvy like that, when you move differently, or you explain something in a very ethereal way, it's strange. It's strange to see similarities from people that are long dead to someone that just wrote a book not that long ago. It's a pretty strange thing. Like, oh my God, like, you know, yes, I know there is inspiration in that idea, but it's bigger than that. It's how they grasp the concept of it. When the myth, let's go to House of Leaves, when the myth of the Minotaur and the Labyrinth was created, what did they mean by that? Because suffice to say, as some people will believe, I don't think they just said, isn't that a cool story I made up? That's fun. Just like DC and Marvel, you know, we're just adding to the lore. You know, I think that's bigger than that, man. And a lot of people believe that because the idea of the labyrinth and the Minotaur has been used expressly through psychology and mythology going forward for centuries to come. We understand that about ourselves. This place in our mind that we can't fathom, this unendingness, this feeling of I don't understand, like what I'm doing with the stream of consciousness. I'm opening these doors, I'm wandering through my own mind, and there's this Minotaur waiting for me, lurking behind every step, waiting to eat me alive. What does that mean? Well, it could be ego, or it could be this. You know, Carl Jung could say something about that, I'm sure. My point is, we relate to that, and it still lives. And you see it in House of Leaves, right? I'm 70-something pages in. I'm nowhere near the middle of, let alone the end of it, but I still can see the parallels of what that is. And that's why it's interesting to kind of move through life like that, non-linearly, or however you say that, just kind of at random, you know? It kind of challenges your brain, and it breaks up the monotony of looking at life on this fucking like spectrum or the scale. Like, this is what it is, and that's that. This led to this, that led to that, which is great. If you want to understand how things came to be truly, it's it's nice to be able to see a timeline of how did World War II really begin, and instead of jumping to 1944, then go to 1939, then look at 1943. You know, I can understand that, but when you break it apart and you look at it in a very strange way, it can shape the way you see it in a way you would never believe. You start forming dots that you never would have thought could have been formed before. But anyway, I'm going to call it from there. I want to end this one, and we shall move on to whatever is at hand, I guess. The topic at hand, I suppose. I can't edit this video. This is just going to be out unedited because I don't have an editing program on my laptop. We'll see how this one does. But anyway, I shall see you in the next one.